everyone. I'm basically a law teacher and I work on water laws in general, irrigation laws from EPHD, and this is a product of my witness. I witnessed Chennai floods, which happened in December 2015. I got some photos and I'll show you that. I was a witness to this, and I'm part of certain NGOs, and I had field visits with them. I had talked to them, so I thought of writing a paper, at least, or have a presentation on this topic, so that legal aspects of what has happened may be presented. These floods are extensively covered in media, almost around the world. Every media has covered these floods, and these floods also appeared in Paris Climate Change Conference. It was part of the discussion. So subsequently, I initially worked on groundwater laws. For the past 5-6 years, I worked on groundwater laws also. I see a lot of groundwater bodies that are supposed to be recharging as well as receiving the water. Floodwaters were encroached and waterways were encroached. There were obstacles. So these obstacles created these floods. That is what I feel. Apart from the flood, it was a rain. Floods were caused essentially by rain. But I believe, as well as everyone believes, that it could have been minimized if these water bodies maintained properly. So from that introduction, I just the focus of the paper is groundwater recharge is also a talk. When during summer, if there is no water, then groundwater recharge is talked about. Everyone, when I say talked or discussed, I mean politicians and lawyers, or in courts a petition is filed. So these kind of discussions at political level, media level discussions are going on. And during floods, all other, flood control, laws, management, and all these things are discussed. With those discussions, it stopped. And there need to be some sort of policy formulations and legal mechanism to strengthen the overall water management as well as land management. As I already told, I visited places as well as I met government officials, volunteers, activists, and scholars of various disciplines. With those discussions, I am just drawing my conclusions of that paper. First, Chennai. The whole paper is about Chennai. Chennai is southern Indian state. It's a coastal southern Indian. Chennai is the capital of southern Indian state of Tamil Nadu. It has got a population of around 7 million. One study estimates that around 60% of the population depends on groundwater, whereas government estimates are entirely different. That is why you didn't find out any. Yesterday there were many presentations regarding the groundwater usage in urban cities. Chennai didn't find a place because it is not in the government record. There was no data. I was somehow able to find out one source that says 60%. And recently I got another analysis that maybe an inference. Government supplies 450 mld of water, but it receives around 550 mld of water as sewage. That means the remaining, we need to assume that it comes from groundwater source, because there is no other source apart from. And there are different tanks. Water supply comes to Chennai, that is urban piped water supply, by the piped water supply, as well as in some pockets piped water supply is not available, where tanks are used to supply the water. Lorries are used to supply the water. The sources are usually tanks. There is one desalination plant and well fields, but they constitute only 10% of that 450 mld I told. The remaining comes from 4 large lakes. that are nearer to the Chennai city, as well as water is drawn from one river to these lakes and then transferred to city. Water is also Chennai receives water from a project from the neighboring state of Tamil Nadu. And before that, India is a federal state, and where I hope you understand federal state like United States. The states have absolute control over water. Except interstate water dispute settlement, states have absolute control over water. That means only state legislations provide, or states have larger role to play in lawmaking than the national union government. This is Chennai floods. Again, you can see the photos. I got a better photo. It received 500 millimeter of rain in a single day, December 1. It was pouring all the day, and it's 250 is a government estimates, but other estimates go beyond 500. The loss of life was around 500, and around 2 million people, they lost something in all their houses were flooded. That means they lost at least television sets, refrigerators, air conditioners, and so on. And this flooding was caused essentially by the water carried by two rivers that are part of Chennai city. One is Adyar and another one is Kuam. These two rivers, small rivers, 50 to 60 kilometer extent. These two rivers receive water from all the water bodies that are around Chennai city, and you can see. Okay, this is Chennai airport during floods, and for a week flights were cancelled in Chennai. And actually, this airport is constructed, or not one runway is constructed over Adyar River. And now coming to water bodies that exist in Chennai. Chennai has got around 5,000 lakes. All these lakes were traditional in nature, traditional in the sense it was all not constructed with the modern technology or engineering things, because it was all well established. These 4,000 tanks were already present. They were present for 1,500 years, or at least we can say they are all recorded when British came to India. That means 150 years before, all the 4,000 to 5,000 lakes were present in the three districts surrounded by Chennai and the neighboring two districts. And these lakes were originally, all the lakes were originally constructed or originally made for the purpose of irrigation requirements. And now almost all these lakes, or at least I can say around 3,500 lakes or 3,000 lakes, lost their purpose. Now they are all simply idle. They store water and that's it. And the reason is the irrigation lands are purchased by developers, land developers, plot developers, and therefore there is no possibility for irrigation. Even those landowners have got very less number of acres for their irrigation needs. They can't use the lake water because, for a simple reason, they can't bring water to their land. In between whatever water channel that provides before their land, all of them were purchased by some plot owners, and they developed it. Sometimes it's developed, even if it is not developed, they are not cultivating anything in those lands. So most of those lakes, say for instance 3,500 lakes, are kept idle. I don't have any record of, I don't have any statistics. See, from the very beginning, when I'm discussing about legal aspects, there is a lack of information for me regarding how many lakes are not in real use, how many lakes what is the real extent of land, not just the records. What is the real extent of land? How much is occupied? What is the capacity? How far it is diminished? All this data I do not have, and not only me, and people don't have, because I have connection with a lot of engineers in my place. So we don't have enough data to discuss all these things. So whatever I say, it's all rough estimates, what I see. And these drinking water sources, these 4 lakes that I mentioned, larger lakes, they are all maintained properly. In the sense, tank bunds are maintained properly. But this opening of this lake, it caused all the it has only caused the floods, because it received a lot of water from lot of sources, other lakes. It's a chain of lakes. All these 4,000 lakes are connected with Adyar and Palar river. They are connected amongst themselves, and then finally they go to Adyar and Palar river. Sorry, Adyar, Kostalayar and Kuam rivers, these rivers. And you can see this, first I'll show this. This is the outlet of the lake that I show. This is the lake, and you see how the bunds are maintained properly. And you will see this was a traditional outlet. This was an irrigation outlet. Now there is no irrigation, so this is just kept idle. Because most of the water is utilized by the state continuously, there was no need to let water out. Now, because of these floods, it happened, and there was no place to let the water. Though there is a connection to Adyar river, the channels were already occupied. Now, this is actually irrigation land. This is all irrigation land. Now roads are constructed here. There's a bypass here, and this tank was also breached during December. And next issue is relating to encroachment. You see, it's a tank bund, and a house is constructed. And in the back also you can see some houses are constructed within the lake premises, and there is also pollution. Sewage, unauthorized sewage, usually. Coming to legal aspects, groundwater regulations. India, as I informed already, Tamil Nadu has its own laws for groundwater, and Chennai got a separate mechanism. Chennai, it has got a statutory mechanism called as Chennai Metro Water. This Metro Water Board manages both water supply as well as sewage management. And apart from that, there are general regulations. In fact, there is a Groundwater Act for the Chennai city, but it is not so effective. It has got a lot of regulations, but it is not implemented. Some of them are not implemented properly, some of them are not practical. And one issue I can say, if any groundwater, any borewell, if any unauthorized borewell is made, the government can close it, but each household got its own borewell, and how can it is not possible for them to close it. So in this way, they were unable to implement the laws. There was another law made for the other districts, Tamil Nadu groundwater law, but that was just repealed. It was not made into reality. That means an act was passed by the legislature, it was signed by the governor, that should be signed, but it was not notified to come into effect. And before notification, it was repealed for various reasons, industry, lobby, or agriculture, farming, whatever. But some provisions were made as government orders. That is, such as extraction permissions are required for industries, polluters, and in some packets of where groundwater extraction is critical, the central government has classified various groundwater zones. In some zones, industries need permission, so some regulations are there. And The state might have prevented if why should we integrate the groundwater management with the flood management? Because the whole inundation caused due to this floods might have been prevented if these lakes were maintained properly, optimally. If they were maintained to optimal level, at least the floods might have been minimized. And orders of the courts were reluctantly accepted by the government. That means it's difficult to enforce it. It is difficult to enforce. And there are already laws relating to groundwater recharge that are present, but they are not. There are no models for groundwater recharge. The models that are provided in the government order is difficult to implement. I can't read it. I gave it to an engineer. Somehow I found the order. I can't read it. I gave it to an engineer, and he can't read it. So I gave it to civil engineer. So it's very difficult to read, understand, comprehend what those models are, how to recharge it. But it's simple. It's all depends on the regulatory agencies. They have to accept it. And in conclusion, urban planning must involve protecting waterways and lakes, and encroachments must be removed. Flood control mechanisms must include protecting waterways and lakes. And this rainwater harvesting mechanisms must be enforced strictly. And suggestions or data updates, I couldn't get a lot of data. I couldn't get data. We need data. First, engineers need data, and then lawyers and policymakers need data to interpret based on conclusions. And improved standards need to be adopted. There are some union laws, they are not implemented. Draft laws are already available, but they are not implemented by the state. So first they must be implemented, then it must be analyzed. The experience must be gathered, then it must be analyzed and improved. Unimproving drainage system. Thanks a lot. If you have any questions, like, you can mail me.